The Critical Conservative, Episode 2. I know you're all ready and waiting for it. No rest for the weary. So, as always, let me begin by my fellow Americans. The list of items that I've amassed for today's address is so lengthy that my outline ran out of subparagraphs to use. So I'll have to be choosy maybe a little bit about what I'm going to discuss. There's at least 9 major bullet items across 2 pages. So and as always, I value and appreciate your time and your viewing, coming by and telling other people about it. So first, let's start off with my last video, which was a while ago. And a few of my friends and colleagues that I work with and other people asked, well, when are you going to make another video? And I said, it's difficult because one, I don't have a lot of time to just put videos out like a regular YouTuber. I wish I did. There's plenty of things to talk about. So my last video was pretty generalized, no real specifics, few little stabs here and there, but nothing that couldn't be surmised in a small paragraph and was more generic in nature. So this one is going to hone in on some more specifics, but I really try to avoid specifics because then I'd have to do a video every day and to keep up with everything that's coming out in our world on a daily basis. And that's just in our country alone and in some of our states, in some of our cities, because we're not even paying attention to what's going on in the rest of the world, barely at all. And we should be. It isn't just all mayhem here. There's a lot of things going on everywhere. And they always will be, and there will be again. And there'll always be mayhem here, and there'll be mayhem here again. As someone stated, there's I wish I'd found the reference for it because it's a great reference. It's a great idea that this civil unrest that we go through is a cyclic thing, kind of like the environment has cycles and our bodies and nature has cycles. Everything kind of repeats itself over a certain period of time. And the time period that they mathematically determined was the allotted time for such civil unrest like we're having right now is about 50 years. So if we roll it back to 1970, great civil unrest, and then 50 years prior to that, the 1920s and the Great Depression. So, and then what they also said is that in this current case, it's quite exacerbated and will probably be prolonged compared to the previous editions of civil unrest. And I would contribute that greatly to the fact that we have social media. And so back before, when you would have a movement or a revolution, it had to be word of mouth or paper or letter that distributed these ideas. And it took time, a lot of time, to move this stuff around. Now we have an incalculable ability to communicate, and that brings the ability to progress an idea further, faster, and with a greater reach, and to keep it going. We can market it, and we can dress it up and spill it back out as something that's supposed to promote good in one area and really just does nothing good in anywhere else. In fact, as we're seeing with Black Lives Matter, all one movement does that's mishandled or misused, while the original idea might have been great, it was labeled badly because it was just kind of like slang at the time, Black Lives Matter. Instead of, no, what you're doing is wrong. No, police brutality is wrong. Police murdering people is wrong. Police targeting people of color is wrong. And while that statistically is probable in some areas because exposure rates are higher, because there are areas where people live that they're more dense in demographics, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're being targeted. And a lot of research has shown that they're not being targeted, but that they have more exposure. When in fact it's more white people are murdered by police officers than blacks overall. So, but that kind of diverts from some of my bullet points. I wasn't even really going to dabble into the police brutality section of this and the Black Lives Matter. There is some talk about it later on, but first thing I wanted to really get out there is something that some of the bigs have been discussing for a while. Tucker's been really strong on this and trying to push this idea that big tech is censoring the hell out of us. This is a double-edged sword. We have all these means to communicate with each other, but we have no freedom on them. We have the falsehood idea, this apparatus that we're allowed to use gives us freedom to speech, freedom to talk to each other, freedom to say what we want. It doesn't. In fact, what you did is you signed a terms of service with all of these services that say they can do whatever they want with anything we say or do, and we have no freedom at all. Again, like any revolution, our freedom to progress a movement is then back down to word of mouth, voice in the streets, and letter and paper. Because you can send anything you want through the mail and paper and write whatever you want on it. And that is definitely freedom of speech. But on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and anywhere else that you can communicate online, you have a terms of service, and that provider then can say, well, because we're a private company or using our service, we can do whatever we want with it. It doesn't make it right. It's not fair. It's not moral. It's not just. It's not equal. It's very proprietary. It's biased, completely biased, because the people that get to make decisions of what you and I get to see and hear and say to each other is predetermined by a algorithm looking for keywords and suggestions, ideas that the AI knows that the owners don't want to be distributed, and that is very factual. It's been proven. It's been videotaped. It's been evidenced and investigated. And while the big tech companies decree all kinds of things that they're doing to censor ideas, we're seeing it a lot. I just posted a post on Instagram yesterday that I tried to look at a Tucker Carlson video on Instagram and was immediately given a warning that this information is false. And it was a discussion of COVID-19, and that they cited 3 fact checkers that said, proved they're saying that what Tucker was talking about was false, where in fact Tucker went on his next episode after discovering all this and checked the fact checkers. And that's my big thing. Who is checking the checkers? Because if you have a checks and balances, who moderates it? Well, that really can't be done in this society. You can't have one that can moderate another in such a way to say that if you're going to construe the facts in this way, then we're going to construe them that way for our argument. It wasn't in the last 5 or 10 years that we said that, well, everything we've been saying in the history books for the last 40 years is wrong and accurate because we're only depicting one side of the story, and we don't really know. We know where that story came from, and now how much do we trust the validity of that particular individual that brought that story to us? Stories of the old wars, the Revolutionary War, the founding of America, the defeating of nations. I think if there's only one story that we know that is true 100% in any form of history is the Bible. Everything that we can read in the Bible answers all of our questions that we have today, and we know that it's historically true, and it is actually true, everything that's in the Bible. But when we look at our history books, now we're being told that what we've been recording in terms of history has been misconstrued to us, and we can't trust it any longer. So we're rewriting the history books to be gentrified? I'm not really sure. Globalized. But censorship, that's another form of it. But right now, what we're dealing with is a vacuum of freedom because we're using these services in order to try to communicate with each other and progress our ideas. So Tucker Carlson is being censored. I looked at a post from Mark Levin today on Twitter that immediately, before I tried to retweet it, said, "Are you sure you want to retweet this? Have you read the entire article?" Because it was worried that I might move an idea that they didn't agree with. And you can't tell me that's not what's going on there. I don't care if they're worried about what I read. No, the problem is what they read they don't like, and they don't want it retweeted. And they can't go so far as to block it or ban it or remove it because it doesn't exactly foul their terms of service, but it definitely fouls their ideals. So that's what we're dealing with, is a big tech censorship system that's morals and ideas that don't agree with ours allows them to dictate what we can and cannot say to each other or show each other or try to progress a message. Eventually it'll come down to the persecution of Jews. Oh, wait, we're doing that. And Christians. You'll be afraid to walk around your country and tell people you're a Christian online because you'll be prosecuted and morally destroyed. There's a lot of vocabulary that I'm missing tonight, and it's late, and I'm going to be publishing this video during prime time later. PragerU, they're trying to remove him from Facebook. They're constantly being censored. And the Hodge twins even were facing being removed from Facebook. And I am not actually on Facebook. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Parler. And so I haven't seen what actually happened to him on Facebook, although my wife is on it. But really, the point that I'm trying to drive in with the big tech censorship is who is fact-checking the fact-checkers? Why should we allow them, as Tucker pointed out in his broadcast today, let's see, was it the 16th? Yeah, the 16th, that the information that they were using to fact check him, probably all put together by an AI, was months and months old. From the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the breakout, that was, we didn't have all the information yet. So there was a lot still to be developed. And he almost thought I hit the stop button on my pen. I love the Note 10, and I love the fact that I have the pen, but I like to push the button, and that will stop the video from recording. That would not be good. So I'm going to put that down. And I did not rehearse this video like I did the other one as well, so you're going to get a little bit more abstract vocabulary out of me because I did not take the time, unfortunately, because I do like to have a rehearsed presentation. I believe it's more easily recepted when you don't have so many interruptions in speech and dialogue, and when you have someone who's speaking with a clear train of thought that's rehearsed and well thought and educatedly brought out to you. So people like, again, more ums and unnecessary pauses, which break your train of thought and listening. The Paul Harrell. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. If you haven't watched a Paul Harrell video, even if you don't like guns, just watch his, because that's how you learn to give a speech, is by watching people who give great speeches and rehearse them. So, democratic hypocrisy. That's point number 2. Let's see. That is a whole video all in itself, and tons of people are out there doing videos that discuss what is the issues here. But let's take 2 people, Pelosi and Lori Lightfoot, Mayor of Chicago and the Speaker of the House. So both of them, in the time of this pandemic, when lockdowns have been enforced by law and by civil unrest as a result of it, got their hair done. Complete hypocrisy of the system, the laws that they put in place. Do as I say, not as I do. Lori Lightfoot then turned and made it even worse and poured more salt on the wound by insisting that rioters were not allowed, or protesters, as she called them, were not allowed to protest or burn down her block, or kick her out of her house. Wheeler figured that out the hard way, because apparently he did not put up such blockades, or they got through him. And while I only read the headlines that they got to him somehow, and he is now going to have to move because it's put his condo building or the rest of his neighbors at risk, that's necessary. Unfortunately, if you are going to bow down to the mob, then the mob is just going to eventually take you out, because they are not looking for your approval. They are looking for your removal and for them to be in place. There is no politician that they want to work with. They want to take every politician out and replace the government with a socialistic, communistic society, where everyone's on food stamps and HUD housing, government subsistence, and only they will be the ones of plenty. It's Pan Am, it's Hunger Games, it's all of that stuff. That's exactly where they want to be. They've watched too much of these movies. They're fun to watch, they're entertaining, and they're great fiction, but they don't make a very good reality for 99% of the society, as was demonstrated. If you haven't watched The Snowpiercer, that's a great demonstration of what they're trying to do. And it is unfortunate, because there is a whole gathering of people that deserve better in their lives. But in this world, you have to work hard to get what you get. I don't think too many people have a lot of things handed to them in the middle or lower class that give them a leg up, except the fact that they had the heart and desire to push themselves and make the life for themselves that they wanted and for their family. So, but Pelosi got her hair done, and that was a fantastic video. A op-ed from the Wall Street Journal indicated that move alone may have handed the election to Trump, and I hope it did, because it shows exactly what we've been arguing against, is what they do behind closed doors is not what they tell us to do out in the open. So that was a fantastic set of scenarios. Lori Lightfoot getting her hair done in Chicago in a salon when no one else was allowed to do anything, and then Pelosi turned around and did the exact same thing. And as they all have done, Pelosi and Lightfoot and every other Democratic governor that's in these positions, or senator or congressman, congresswoman, blames everyone else. Blames Trump, blames the salon, blames society, blames the laws, blames everybody else except and zero responsibility to themselves. Wheeler took no responsibility. He spent the entire time on television smearing Trump and telling everyone how horrible his policies are, and the feds coming in and assisting are, and it's unnecessary. It's the Boogaloo, the Proud Boys, and it's fascist as far as they're concerned. It's fascism. No, there's a difference between marching and protesting and destroying your cities, at which point then you don't need fascism. What you need is law and order. What you need is the people to be peaceful protesters, and your citizens to be safe. And while I'm not too concerned about the overall safety of the country, I think we have it in good hands. Everyone's kind of quiet right now, because there's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of oppression to saying what you believe right now. This right here, this little exchange that I'm making with you, is a risk. It's a risk socially. It's a risk, economically, to employment, to ties in family, and anyone who gets online and speaks their mind, or goes out in public and speaks their mind, is up against great oppression, opposition, and possibly defeat. So, but I would encourage everyone to speak more. The silent majority has been too silent for too long, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. So, Portland mayhem, continuing on and on, because, Wheeler will not resign. He will not take action. He will not step up. He will just bow to the mob. And the same with Chicago. Blame, Indiana, blame Wisconsin for the guns coming into Chicago, blame Trump for not enacting more gun control, when in fact it's her citizens. And it isn't even like they care to be her citizens. They don't care where they are. They are dealing with a situation that's in front of them that they got dealt. And it's not a good one. It's kind of like, dealing with the guerrilla warfare and militia in South Africa or something like that. So that's what it's turned into. Is guerrilla warfare, essentially, but on the streets of a major city in America. And then we're looking at, video of Portland after, Chaz and Chop was dismantled, and, what other major cities were hit pretty hard? Washington. And then, I didn't even put the bullet point down for the fires. I'm going to have to make a note to talk about that. Because this climate control thing is a scam. So, it's not a scam, but like I said in the beginning, everything has a cycle. Okay, let's scroll back up here. So I'm going to move a little bit forward. Everyone really knows what I'm trying to get at. I'm going to bring up a lot of points. What I want you to do is think about these points, think about your arguments in these things, and first substantiate them greater. Take more information and that you research and find out about them, and move the idea on. Keep it pushing down the block. You can't just hold on to it. You've got to keep on conveying it to others. Same thing with Christianity. If you have the solution and you don't give it to others, then you're not progressing the world in any good way. You can be a good Christian at home, but if you're not trying to help everyone else learn what the love of Jesus Christ is, then you're not doing much good for Jesus Christ, because that's the whole point, is to make disciples of each other. So, COVID-19. So Tucker had a video today talking about being censored, and he brought in the doctor from China that is telling us that it's a bioweapon that was engineered, and that China's bioengineering weapons for military use. This misinformation campaign that comes along with the mainstream media, the alphabet networks, the CNN, the MSNBC, the ABC, NBC, CBS guys, and is just treading on our freedoms. Really, all this is trying to dissolve the Constitution and install a socialist regime. We want. They're doing everything they can to smear Trump. And we have now all this discussion of the vaccination woes. Who's going to get it first? How's it going to be distributed? When's it going to be deployed? And how much is it going to cost? Is there going to be a chip in it? Bill Gates is involved in the development of the vaccination, and Alex Jones is one that is really pressing this one hard. There's another conspiracy theory behind that, and while it sounds nuts, there's some points that need to be looked at, like how the virus got engineered in the first place, who funded it, where did the idea come from, and we're looking at just Bill Gates is Thanos. So that's one of the issues, so I'm just going to throw all those bullet points at you. COVID-19, we obviously know that there's a lot of problems going on with how it's being handled. The U.S. is doing about as best as it can with the resources it got and the opposition to good solutions that it has. Because while every good idea that Trump has, he is immediately having it shot down, or anything that he says that's in support or lack of support, for one thing. The fact that he said it, just because he said it alone, is a reason to disagreeing with it. If Pelosi came out and said all these things, or Schumer, anybody else on the Democratic side, it'd be a win for everybody. Goal and go home. So, but the fact that Trump is saying it and that they're still sore over 2016, they just can't allow any success on his behalf. So that's where we're at with COVID-19. It doesn't matter what he says, how many people are cured, how many people don't die from it. They're going to blame every single death on him. And while he is responsible for each death that has occurred so far, there are a great many less because of every action that he's taken. And every city is responsible for their deaths, and states and governors and mayors, and that's just the way it works. Those people that we've allowed to be responsible for our lives are responsible for our lives. So you in the military, your officer is the one who's responsible for your life by giving you orders and telling you what to do. And if those orders get you killed, well, that's on his part. So that is my COVID-19 spiel. I didn't need to spend much time on it because we all really know what's going on there. The next part was we're starting to run into children being found that were like Georgia, Blythewood, South Carolina, Camden. I think there was another one, pedophiles and sex traffickers that have been moving children, moving people, sex, to even adults. And people are saying, well, how are we all of a sudden figuring all this out? Where are we getting this information from that we're finding these children? Well, I have a good theory, and of course I can't back this up in any way, and I haven't really done any research. It just is 2 + 2 = 4. Ghislaine Maxwell is in custody and is leaking. She's purging information to save her own skin. And so I'm sure that at this point she has revealed as much information as she feels necessary at this time. I'm sure it's a slow leak, but that is probably why we're starting to discover groups of children that have been captured or taken, essentially, and we're running into those now. So of course, the normalization of child sexualization, that is a bigger issue than COVID-19. That's a bigger issue than the 2020 election. That is a bigger issue than the hurricanes coming in America. This is, sex trafficking of children, pedophilia, the normalization of it. When I discussed a certain group of people that were taking over our media, and really we handed it to them out of political correctness, they have now normalized a culture that is accepting of pedophilia, and they're bringing it into the stage light. And now they're changing laws in California to allow it within a 10-year gap, so that they will not be registered as a sex offender. They might be prosecuted, but they're not going to have to put their name on a list and have their photograph published on the internet saying what they did to a little underage person. So that's not working in the right direction. There are. And my daughter asked the question, my 17-year-old, the other day. She says, if I could ask God a question, what would it be? And I said, well, actually, I don't have any questions for God, because he's given us all the answers already. As I mentioned earlier, the only truth we know is that the Bible is true. And every answer that we have that has to do with what we do in our world today is from the Bible. So, but she said she looked up pedophilia and couldn't find anything in the Bible glossary online in terms of pedophilia. And I said, well, in the Bible, we were also instructed to follow the laws of Adam when in Rome. So, and Jesus told us, pay your taxes, pay your taxpayer. You have to respect these people. And that was also because that God ordained the people that he put in charge of the nations, the kings. They were ordained by God, and so the laws that they created were essentially from the mouth of God, so to say. And so we're generating laws because of pedophilia and that it's a bad thing. That's because God is telling us it is. So there's same thing with abortion. We're trying to generate laws that are pro-life, anti-abortion, because the taking of life is against God's will. And that's just pure and simple. So, and then I guess, again, things like sodomy and same-sex. And while everyone is free to choose how they live their life, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to see the roses on the other side of the table. So, and while I will not judge everyone for their lifestyle, I definitely have my preference. They have theirs, and I know which way the Bible indicates. So, but where we're at with the pedophilia and the sex trafficking, this is the tip of the iceberg. Just having Epstein taken, down, and Maxwell, probably in there leaking a little bit at a time, information. That's one chain, one circle in the world. And while the fictional movie Taken was a great little tale, it's a tale of what's really going on. Same as is the House of Cards on Netflix is a tale of what's really going on in the U.S. government and has for generations. So the next topic point is the election results. And this is slowly creeping in to become a much bigger issue. Everyone is starting to talk about it. Tucker actually mentioned it today, and so did a lot of other YouTubers that I watch, and Instagram feeds and Twitter. This is we're getting closer to line. There's two ways it can go, obviously. Red or blue. And the outcome is what everyone is wondering about. Not who's going to win, but what's going to happen after the winner is announced. And that really is probably the scariest moment we may face in this nation, is November 3rd at 8:01 p.m. when the voting ends. And at that time, the popular vote will be complete. The Electoral College will make its election, and we will have our next president of the United States. But what will the people do in response to the answer to that? Well, we have seen for the last few months what the Blue Party, the Blue Pillars, will do in response to Trump winning, because they have done everything they can to destroy the country to make sure that he doesn't win, because all of this is done under his watch. Well, you can't blame Trump for what's going on when his cities, he has federal control. He does not have state control. He doesn't have executive control over the entire nation to just command troops in and do what he pleases without making some serious concessions. And not all of that is correct. So he is playing the playbook line for line, and it looks legit and constitutional. But when people are no longer taking responsibility for their actions and they're destroying everything around them and murdering each other, and then now the public is no longer safe, society is no longer safe, well, then you have to step in. But we don't want a martial law or a takeover or tyranny. So that is all based on everyone's reaction. So my prediction, I have an idea of how things will go on November 3rd at the closing of the election. It will be similar to the South Park episode of Obama winning, which was pretty hilarious. I really enjoyed that episode. Everyone was celebrating. They got drunk. Everybody was partying. It was like a 3-month-long party, and that was fantastic. The conservative side is a little bit more relaxed. We were relaxed when we won the election. We did not, I'm sure that many people shoved it in a lot of people's faces, but it wasn't to say that it was all over the media and we were not, just driving in droves around and burning things down because we won in celebration. But so far, in retaliation for our win and what's coming up, they have been attempting to burn down everything preceding that. So if Trump wins, the riots will continue. Martial law will damn near almost have to be instilled in order to quell it. And if Trump loses, you're going to see probably still rioting, because like I said, they don't care who's in office. They don't care which politician is for or against them. They don't want any politicians. They want zero lawlessness. That's what they're looking for, and to install a dictatorship, socialism, a communist state. So that's what they're looking to get. and we're talking about a very noisy, small percentage. Again, like I stated in the other video, we are making concessions to probably 0.0001%, of the noisy ones. Now, they might be part of the 50% that is out there that's, that has a fuss with this, but the ones that are really making it bad for everybody are from that side, and that's the problem. So how can you take them seriously? But, and there's another issue of this misinformation, the mainstream media having control of everything. So when the election results come out, so far, news in elections has been news. Numbers are numbers. But what if they start to withhold those numbers? What if they start to keep the results from each state, saying, well, we're not really sure about these results, and we're not ready to release them yet. As is understood at this point from discussions in Congress and in the Constitution, if a president cannot be selected within a due period of time, then the Speaker of the House takes over the presidency. That's definitely part of the playbook plan at this point for the blue team, because if Biden does not look like he's going to win, and they can suppress the rest of the results and mail-in votes and keep them from coming in so that there isn't a chance of it turning over, then they will take it over by force. So I believe that's very possible. That would be the one final blow that could cause this thing to blow up. Biden winning is probably not going to cause so much civil unrest that it would start a war, or for people to stand up and take action. We would see a lot of bad things happen. We would see our freedom stripped, the dissolution of the Constitution, our independence. We would then be ran by Bernie Sanders and the Harris administration with Biden, because it's not the Biden administration. He doesn't actually have control of anything. He's the puppet. And that is clearly evident. And everyone that's they must know this. They really must know this. Everyone that is waving around these Biden flags must know. You have to know that he is not in charge of his own faculties. He is not, determining what he's going to say when he's in front of people. And I'm going to touch on this later because it's way too comedic. So the withholding of results and the provocation of civil conflict is a possibility, but if blue wins, I don't see that happening. It's not like all of the conservatives are going to stand up and march to Capitol Hill with our guns fully loaded and pitchforks and torches. I don't see that happening. We have a lot more, I wouldn't say patience, but we definitely have better morals and scruples compared to the Democrats. They are very emotionally driven, less logically driven. So when something doesn't go their way, they really cry and scream out about it. Whereas when we see something go wrong, we kind of internalize it, and it doesn't go our way, and we think, well, we can pick ourselves up and we can keep marching forward, and we'll get them on the next one. It isn't like this is the final chance. But, and that depends on who you talk to, because the freedom is only here as long as we keep it here, as long as we fight for it. And it can be easily taken away by changing of laws that strip us from being able to vote. So, and that's a possibility. If a dictatorship is installed and tyranny takes over and Antifa has their way and Black Lives Matter has their way, then that's what we'll be looking at. I mean, that's their government that they're trying to get. Like I said, they don't want your government. They don't care who you are, blue, red, doesn't matter, independent, green, purple, white, anything out of, solar opposites or Rick and Morty. It doesn't matter who you are. They want civil unrest, civil war, installed dictatorship. It's that simple. I'm going to spin off on the socialism rant for just a moment, because there's a point that I didn't write down that I do want to make, and that is that if we move into that type of place right now, something I'm going to touch on later is that we've damn near created gun control by just making ammo obsolete, which was something they threatened for years. Is that they were going to take away our guns. If they couldn't take away our guns, they're going to take away our ammunition. Well, they figured out how to do that in a supply and demand process of making it so scarce, it's almost more scarce than toilet paper was for 4 months. So, so many people are switching to reloading, or they're bringing in ammo from other countries. Whatever they get their hands on, at this point, it's cheaper to go to Zales. So okay, I'm going to have to edit my little stoppings here because my brain is just not working the way it should be anymore. There's a pill for that, isn't there? So, but the ammunition, I really hate the way I think. I lose track of mine so quickly. Okay, I'm going to move on with my thing because I can't remember what the heck I was talking about. In terms of the election results, though, and where we're at with voting, the silent majority is probably quite aware, but there's a ton of people that are unaware of what is going on. One of the writers that I follow in California said that his mother in Oregon had no idea about the fires and the protests, and his sister in Washington was unaware of all the dangers that was around them. And that's just crazy that there's people that are connected to very vocal individuals about what's going on in the world that don't know what's going on. It's our obligation, again, to spread the message, spread the good news, and spread what is going on, because the news is necessary. Kids these days are really tired of hearing about politics. It's all that's on TV. It's all that's on every TV show, sitcom, satire. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all political. It's all based. They're trying to forward their message by their TV and their dramas and their, entertainment, whatever it is that they can get through and educate people on their way of thinking. There's a manner in which I describe education to my kids, or learning. Exposure to anything creates comfort. If you're exposed to something good or bad, you will eventually find comfort with that item. It may not be good comfort, but you will be comfortable enough with it because you have seen it and experienced it. Comfort creates acceptance, and acceptance eventually drives to belief. And so if you are constantly abused in your life, you'll become comfortable with that. It's not a good comfort, but you're used to it, and it's attention, and you'll deal with it because you have no out. So eventually, your comfort will turn to acceptance, and you will hate yourself, you'll have a bad self-image, and you'll accept your life situation for what it is. And then that becomes a belief. And now you will eventually possibly become an abuser because now you believe it. You've lived it your life. And so that's why we've ended up with the Democrats in the form that they are, because 40 years of progress has not been progressive. It has been recessive. They are degrading at an exponential level. And now they're pile driving everything into these radical ideas. They can call the right, the alt-right, or the far right. And there's a video on PragerU that shows what's happened to the House, to the government, that there used to be a lot of talk between the sides, and that has broken down over the last 40 years, and that is completely true. That's how we've ended up in this situation, is because no one was willing to walk across the aisle and listen to the other side. And it's both parties that blame for that. And it isn't the two-party system that's caused all this conflict. As I said in my other video, it's the mainstream media, it's social media, it's censorship, it's the progressive of one idea over the internet and over TV versus an equal sharing of ideas. So, but in the lack of awareness, not everyone knows or cares what's going on. And age makes a difference. Like I was talking about, the younger generation just don't want to hear about it anymore, but they need to start focusing on what's going to affect them in the next 30 years, because this chain will just keep going like this, until 18 to 25-year-olds give a damn about the election, about who's running their cities and states when they become 35 and 40. This is my story. Then all of a sudden they're going to be very unhappy with what's in front of them because they allowed it to get there. From the time you're allowed to vote, that's the time to vote. So, and my 18-year-old will be voting this year. So she votes based on her own prerogative, but I definitely know what she's voting for. So, and then TV makes the rest of the difference. I already discussed that. So, okay, I already said that. So let's move on to Joe Biden, or the Harris administration, because this thing he just did with the music on TV with his cell phone, trying to appeal to the Latin vote, It's freaking fantastic. I have to say, that gave me a laugh. It was actually cringeworthy. I really wanted to recoil and pull my skin off my face because it just was so horrible watching him do this. I was like, you got to be kidding me that he is like, oh, children, candy. You want candy? Here, little candy. Yeah. It was horrifying. And then, he did the interview with Cardi B. It seemed like he didn't even know what to say. I think he just felt like he was looking at something he didn't understand. And I think Cardi B was feeling like she was looking at something that she didn't understand. She might agree with him or said she did, and she really tried to make it sound like she was the sweet Southern down home mama. But we know with the $10,000 nails that she was wearing that's not the case. So, and then in terms of the Democrats and some more of the hypocrisy, you have the pandering of Biden with the music on his phone in the interview with Cardi B. Then you have Pelosi and the Democrats kneeling when they were kneeling for George Floyd in the House and wearing the kente cloth. And that was a cringeworthy upset and an embarrassment for the Democratic Party. That was absolutely horrible. You'd never see the Republicans coming up with an idea like this in order to try to appeal to a certain population. It's nuts. I mean, the ice cream man is allowed to do that because he's the ice cream man. He can bring ice cream around, he can serve it to you, okay? But you aren't. This is ridiculous that you think that you can take a knee, you can wear the kente cloth, you can play the Latin music on your phone to appeal to the people. You're not the ice cream man, no matter how much you want to be. So, the empty field. So the video of Joe Biden getting off the plane, waving at the empty field. I'm sorry, that was fantastic. That was another great highlight of the day, and for this week, another good win for Alzheimer's. And and then when he did go into that meeting and to meet the people in the Latin briefing, I think I heard maybe a total of 5 people clap, maybe 10 at the most. So again, with him getting off the plane and waving in an empty field and then walking into an arena that probably only had 10 people in it, or onto a stage with only maybe 10 or 12 admittance. So, and then the last really good jab that we got this week was Harris saying it's a Harris administration with Biden, really just throwing it out there. I mean, they're trying to subvertly take over the country, but at this point, they're not using subversion at all. They're just declaring it straight out what their intentions are, and that is they are not going to lose and they're not going to give it up. So let me do a little check here, because if this thing stops recording, I'm going to be so mad. Now, it looks like it's still going, and I'm having to use my iPad as a mirror to look behind, since I started a video and then notice I kept looking at myself, kind of like the first episode. So I've turned the phone around and I'm just looking at the lens, because that's at least giving you some eye contact, which is more engaging. So, but that was a great little stab. Harris coming out and describing the administration as hers, which it's not even hers. She's first in command over Biden, but Bernie Sanders is in charge of the whole freight train, and Soros is funding it, and we know that. And they tried to off people discussing that. So I discussed the reaction to the election, and then I had another bullet point under this section of election results about preparing for November 3rd. I don't think anybody should be unarmed on November 3rd, but I don't think anybody should be out there trying to shoot anybody either. But definitely be ready, because that's going to be the biggest question. Forget what's going to happen on Survivor. Forget, celebrity dance. Dancing with the celebrity show my wife watches, or any of these things. Forget the results, and the election itself is not even going to be as important as what happens afterwards, because the people's response and the peaceful transition of power, or the peaceful state of power, we're going to see how good you are, America. You better hold fast. So, but mail-in voting. I don't know about this one. There's a lot of discussion of what can go wrong, and it's too easy. Sure, the mail service is not going to assist in mail fraud, but we've seen Amazon workers very angrily handle MAGA gear online and stuff like that while they're stuffing it into bags to get shipped out, and they're making sure the labels don't look good, so they probably won't get to where they're supposed to go. People are not going to get their merchandise. And so if you have individuals in the post office that are a little bit disgruntled with the way things are going right now, there's a chance that some thousands and thousands of ballots may not make it to the ballot box. But more worrisome than that of corruption inside the mail service or anyone being devious inside the mail office is the mail voting the voting registries, which are full of passed on individuals, animals, pets, trees, people who married trees. And those are all going to get ballots, and someone's going to fill them out and mail them back. And if you cannot validate those individuals, then how can you say that's a good vote? So absentee voting should be what everyone is forced to do for mail-in voting, and they should be forced to register, get your ballot in the mail, but just free-floating ballots should not be mailed out in the mail system by the millions to everyone who has an address or did have an address for the last 30 years. So, because you're going to get 25 ballots to your house for everyone that's ever lived there over the last 30 or 40 years. As in California, the justice... I really hate not having written down the reference, but they had an injunction against California and were able to get a lawsuit settled where California was going to clean up their voter registration of 20 million illegitimate voters. And that's going to take years, and they know that. But we had a win, so that means they're going to clean up their books. But everyone else needs to do the same. They need to clean up their books. So in voting in person, if obviously we've all seen this going on, and everyone has been saying it to each other, but we need to say it out loud like this. If you can riot and you can protest, or you can show up to a Trump rally, or you can show up to a Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden rally, then you can vote in person. You can walk your happy little ass across the street to your poll location the same time you're going to Walmart or to Starbucks or whatever else it is you're doing in your daily life that apparently allows you to travel outside your home and vote. Otherwise, register for an absentee ballot right now, and you'll have plenty of time to get it. So, but being ready for the landslide and the fallout is the biggest point that I want to make in terms of preparing for November 3rd. And that really could be its own video, just discussing that stuff. So, next section, rioting is not protesting. We know it's being funded. We know the sources behind it. The DNC is funding it. You have Kamala Harris telling them to fund the rioters and get them out of jail, and then they just released a pedophilic sexual offender under her guidance. That was her win right there, letting another child sex offender on the streets again. And Black Lives Matter is funding it. Every dime that they have is not going into communities or charities or food banks or rebuilding communities of any type. It is going strictly into the old white people that they say they can't stand. That is the Democratic Party to ensure its win. So, and the rioting purpose is, again, like I've been saying kind of along throughout this video, is that it is for, because they don't care who's in charge, it is for them to take over. That's it. They just want the mob to rule the nation. So they want the destruction of our freedoms. Now, in terms of rioting, there is one really good source to go check out your videos right now. I know everybody is tied into the spots on Twitter and YouTube where you can watch some of the good riot videos, but you have definitely got to check out Steve Inman. Send thousands of people his way. He deserves it. He used to be an MMA announcer, and he is using his sportscaster abilities and voiceover to do amazing things with the greatest videos that the internet can offer. The Karen videos of Bear getting smacked in the junk. It's fantastic. Every time Antifa gets bapped, in the face, he's got a video about it, and it's great. So definitely check out Steve Inman. Look him up, get to him, watch his stuff. We've been talking a little bit about guns and ammo. Lack of ammunition is their form of gun control, and it really would be cheaper to just go buy diamonds at this point. So, but it's turning into the Last of Us, the video game, in expert mode. There's just no ammo anywhere, and so you're dealing with everything around you, but you cannot acquire any more ammo for the most part. And when it is acquirable, it's at a great expense. We're looking at twice the price of normal prices for ammunition. It's ridiculous. So, but one of the other parts that goes along with that is keep your powder dry, meaning keeping your experience up, your experience level. Do short mag drills. one shot mag swaps, and get used to that kind of stuff. That'll train your hand and eye, your muscle memory better. Train as often as you can afford. I don't train enough. I ought to. It's been bloody hot here in South Carolina, and it's finally starting to cool off. The nice hurricane is going to come bring us some cool weather and humidity, so we'll see how that goes. But I still don't have a lot of ammo to work with. So, freedoms. Let's see. Everyone that sees this and anyone you forward this to or tell anyone about needs to depart from the silent majority. We are the majority, and there's no need to be afraid anymore. We cannot allow these social injustices to take rule of our lives and our freedoms. They are making it seem like they have control of us, and they don't. They can't win this way. We must start to speak up. Everyone should have a YouTube channel or a Twitter feed, or write letters to their congressmen and to their senators about the way they want their states run, about the way they want their cities run, and the way they want the election to go, and how they want the election handled. We think that these polls mean something, but they don't. We won't know what people really think, as it was the last election, until the final moment. And I said this to a lot of people, I don't think that any one of these companies, these big tech companies, would do this. But if they did, they would never release the results. They would never release the results of this. If you were to post the question for everyone that opens Facebook or Twitter, like the moment they open it, they're just given the question. Who are you voting for? Those results would never ever make the day of light unless they were in their favor. So, I mean, that would be the ultimate tell of what's really going on. And that would probably, the reason they would never release the results if they saw a great movement for Trump is because then all of a sudden that would embolden the Trump movement, and everyone would be fearless and come out and talk about it. And they wouldn't be able to persecute us as easily anymore by firing us and dismissing us and giving us this cultural appropriation training. Removing your whiteness, things like that. That Trump has even told the CDC to not do, but they have not responded yet. We were getting good news from some of the departments. So, but in that, this being in the silent majority, this is affecting. It can affect your employment. It can affect your family and your friendships. But if we take this information and we start to talk, if we become less silent, we got to get noisy. Then we don't have to fear these retributions so much. Right now, it's about as bad in America being a Trump supporter as being a Christian in Syria or Iran. So, but you need to educate each other. We need to talk. We need to listen to everyone. You need to take in many different multiple angles of opinion, but they need to be well thought, educated at a tone volume like this, where we can have a mature conversation about things. So, but take in as much as you can from both sides. But you don't need to listen to lunacy. But we do need to find the individuals that have the right information that really represent the real issues. And there was a video on Instagram of a woman talking about, well, we can't really win if we talk about policy issues, meaning they know they're not going to win on policy because their policies are going to destroy the country. So they're just going to win by smearing the other side. So that's going to be the end result. 1 minute. Last bit. It's time for bed because I got work tomorrow. And by the time you see this, I'll be at work. So I have put 2 and 2 together again in a different equation and a different math problem here regarding 9/11. And 9/11 we just went through the anniversary again, the 19th anniversary. That's crazy. It was so long ago. 9/11 affected everybody's lives. You don't know how much it did until you say it. So, pardon me. I got in the service after 9/11 in 2003, partially because of 9/11 and other life situations, but it was a definite motivator. So, why did it happen? We think that, Al-Qaeda orchestrated it and that Osama bin Laden was the mastermind behind 9/11. But there was a trade deal that was going on with Afghanistan in the 80s before that. And a whole bunch of money trading hands. In fact, there was a movie made about it. But the Clinton administration, obviously now being revealed, having great, substantial links to Epstein, Lolita Island, and Maxwell, and being on the flight logs, and having there was probably some evidence of Clinton's doings with Epstein and with children or whatever was going on. There was probably investigations, tails, CIA, NSA operatives that were privy to certain information that may have destroyed the Clinton administration. Definitely would have destroyed the Clintons. It would have had them both in prison for life. It definitely would have Bill Clinton in prison for life. Regarding what was going on with Epstein, and where those evidences were being kept, or investigations and folios of files and things like that, were probably targets during 9/11. Okay, so follow me here. Now I know this is whack. This is Alex Jones whack, and I mean, he might have given me the idea, but he didn't say this. I don't think he's ever even put these two things together. I don't think anyone on the internet has ever put these two things together. Is that Epstein was the reason 9/11 happened, because of Bill Clinton. If it wasn't the primary reason, it was certainly a sub-routine running underneath it. They didn't discourage it or prevent it from happening because of certain evidences. When the intelligence that this was going to come came to light inside the government, they could have stepped in and done something about it. And everyone says that the U.S. was behind it and they masterminded it. No, but there was definitely some key players activated in this, which is another one of those types of House of Cards references, because if they can be that crazy, and which it is, then this is definitely viable. It's possible. And this is complete just humdrum, out of the air, maniac theory, just conspiracy theory. It might be the pandemic getting to me and all this isolation. I'm still going to work every day, so I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that everybody's going batshit crazy. So the destruction of evidence, the prevention of investigation, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, the CIA and FBI had offices in the Twin Towers. They obviously were occupying the Pentagon. So if there was evidence and manuscripts or tapes or witness reports, they were probably in these locations where these planes were being flown to. Now, I've discussed this with some of my coworkers and friends, and they are like, yeah, you're nuts. And no, they would never do this. This would take, this type size of conspiracy is just too grand, too large to have been pulled off without people knowing. Well, they're telling us that's how it happened, and that Osama did it without nobody knowing. That he sent these people here to learn how to fly planes, and they went back to Afghanistan and went to different countries and came back to America. They were radicalized, came back to America, got on planes and flew them into buildings. So if he could pull it off, there's definitely a good chance that high-ranking and the top highest-ranking officials in the U.S. government were able to be accessories to this. So QAnon has a lot of information they're pushing about Epstein, and I know that Alex Jones has a lot of stuff that he's said in the past about 9/11 and the moon landing and all this other crazy shit. And we did land on the moon. If you're wondering where I stand on that, that there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are just asinine, and I think that's one of them. But in terms of nutso theories, I think that 9/11 had something to do with evidence regarding Clinton and Epstein and what Clinton's activities were, which is why none of that evidence exists at this time, because it was all rubble. So take that what you will, pass it around, use it as a dinner conversation and see what comes back. Maybe it'll go somewhere. So that's it. That's my segment for tonight. This is a long one. I do apologize. I know that I haven't been organized, and if I have to re-record this, I'm going to be really, really mad, because this took a while, and I don't do a lot of YouTube videos, and I see why it is such a pain in the neck to make your video and then go back and watch it over again and edit it, multiple times, make cuts and get rid of your ums. And, most people try to have a continuous video with no cuts. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to cut anything in here. You're going to get my pauses and my lost train of thought and all the oopses and things like that, because that's real. That's as real as it gets. So, and I want to be real with the people that I speak with. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch. It is very humbling to be able to speak to others, and I look forward to your responses. Reply in the messages. Make a video. Put it in the comments in this video. Put your video in this comment section under this video. I want to see it. I want to know what everybody's saying. I want more input. Short circuit Johnny 5. Need input. Everyone needs more input. We're not getting enough information. You might have all of that information on your phone. You might have the entire internet at your fingertips, but you're not getting the information you need. I am going to promote a couple of individuals. Tucker Carlson, Mark Levin, the Hodge twins. I could go through my Instagram and just rattle off names and my Twitter account, but it's 4 a.m. Let's go to bed. Have a good day. Enjoy your freedom while you got it. Let's keep it going.